You've been lied to about love. Here's the truth.
What you call love isn't love, it's fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of not being enough. Fear of living without someone to validate you, to make you feel worthy. But ask yourself, if that person vanished tomorrow, would you still feel whole? Or would you collapse like a building held up only by someone else's presence? That knot in your stomach, the trembling hands when a message goes unanswered, the obsessive checking of their last online status. That's not love. It's anxiety in disguise. It's attachment. It's emotional dependency. And worst of all, you've been taught to mistake it for love. Carl Jung put it bluntly. The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there's a reaction, both are transformed. But you're not transforming. You're disappearing. You mold yourself to fit another, shrinking, denying, betraying yourself, all because you're terrified they might leave. You believe that without them you're nothing. Here's the hard truth. What you feel isn't love, it's addiction. You're hooked on another person like a drug, because alone, you don't know how to fill the void inside you. You're using them to numb a pain you're too afraid to face. 4. Attachment versus love. Attachment is the illusion that you need someone to survive. It whispers, without them, I'll die. But you won't. You'll rebuild. You'll grow. Absence, when faced with courage, becomes your greatest teacher. Any love is freedom. Attachment chains you, love expands you. Until you understand this, you'll keep mistaking cages for embraces. You've been taught that love means possession, control, security. But real love needs no locks, no promises, no guarantees. Jung knew this. He saw how we project our emptiness onto others, seeking outside what we lack within. We become emotional vampires, feeding on someone else's presence to avoid confronting our own wounds. The turning point. There comes a moment when you realize, this love isn't saving me, it's drowning me. That's when true detachment begins. Not as cold indifference, but as radical self-love. Detaching isn't stopping love, it's loving without chains. It's releasing the fear of loss. It's knowing that a real love doesn't demand sacrifice. It demands authenticity. True love doesn't shrink you. It doesn't ask you to be less. It calls you to be more, to grow, to fly, to stand complete on your own. Because until you do, you'll keep searching for love in places that can only offer fear. You don't need anyone to be complete, because you already are. Even if you don't believe it yet, even if the mirror still feels like a stranger, yes, letting go will hurt, like tearing away a piece of your soul. You've lived so long convinced that another person was your oxygen that you forgot how to breathe on your own. But it is possible. And when you finally break free, everything shifts. Not because the world changes, but because you do. You stop seeing through the lens of lack and start seeing from wholeness. Detachment isn't closing your heart. It's opening it, without conditions. It's loving without fear. It's saying, I love you, but I don't need you to be happy. And though it sounds paradoxical, this is the purest love of all. No pressure, no manipulation, no expectations, just truth. Jung called it individuation, the path of reclaiming your fractured pieces, integrating your shadows, and standing whole. Only then can you truly relate, not from emptiness, but from abundance, not from need, but from choice, not to complete yourself, but to share what's already complete. But this demands courage. Attachment is familiar, even when it strangles you. Detachment? It throws you into the abyss of your own solitude and says, face yourself. Most turn back here. They prefer the devil they know, the prison of dependency, over the terrifying freedom of the unknown. What awaits on the other side? Peace. Not the fragile kind that shatters when someone leaves, but an unshakable stillness that comes from within. A love that flows out instead of begging to be filled. This is where you finally understand. Letting go isn't loss, it's reclaiming yourself. Love shouldn't hurt, shrink, or demand your surrender. If it does, it's not love. It's attachment in disguise. People don't love. They cling. They use another person to avoid their own void, mistaking intensity for intimacy and obsession for passion. But there's another way. 1. Learn to be alone. Sit with your shadows until they become familiar. 2. Stop outsourcing your worth. No one else's reflection can define you. 3. Choose, don't need. Only then can you say, I'm here because I want to be, not because I'll die without you. Ask yourself, why does the thought of letting go feel like death? What part of me believes it's worthless without another's validation? What hole am I trying to patch with someone else's love? This is the root of your attachment. Pull it out, not with rage, but with compassion. This isn't about hating the other person. It's about loving yourself enough to stand alone. Your real love is freedom, not chains, but dance, not fear, but free presence, not control, but voluntary companionship. If you have to force it, it's not love, it's fear. And fear doesn't build, it destroys. So let go. Not with resentment, but with gratitude. Not as a defeat, but as the bravest choice you'll ever make. Choosing yourself. When you finally choose yourself, when you stop begging the world to fill what only you can fill, something extraordinary happens. You stop pleading for love, as if it were a prize to be won, accepting crumbs, while calling it a feast, morphing into who others want, betraying yourself to keep them. Now you stand whole, and this changes everything. L'histoire detachment is not coldness, it's your awakening. It's realizing everything that comes can leave, and you'll still be intact. True safety isn't in another's arms, it's in your own breath. Love isn't a transaction, it's a free offering. From this unshakable core, you love differently. Without fear, because you've met your own abyss. Without demands, because you're no longer starving. Without losing yourself, because you're already found. Here's the uncomfortable truth no one tells you. Attachment doesn't just distort love, it distorts you. Like a silent sculptor, fear chips away at your authenticity. You edit your thoughts before they're spoken. You abandon desires before they're felt. You become a beta version of yourself, one you think they'll approve. The cruel irony. They never asked for this sacrifice. You did it to yourself, driven by the primal terror. If I'm fully me, will they stay? This is where Jung's shadow work becomes vital. Every time you hide your anger to seem easygoing, smother your needs to appear low maintenance, swap your truth for their comfort, you're not loving, you're performing. And the cost? Relational neurosis. A vicious cycle where your worth is outsourced, your boundaries dissolve, your intuition goes mute. You become an emotional weather vane, spinning with every shift in their mood, their attention, their presence. Real love begins when you 1. Interrupt the pattern. Why do I feel responsible for their emotional state? 2. Reclaim your shadow. What parts of me have I disowned to be loved? 3. Anchor in your own presence. If they left tomorrow, would I still recognize myself? This isn't about blaming attachment, it's about transcending it. Exchanging the drama of dependency for the quiet power of interdependence. The sun doesn't cling to the earth, it simply shines, and in that radiant release, life flourishes. This is your call to love from overflow, not lack. Choose, don't need. Be the source, not the seeker. Because the deepest love affair was never with another. It was always with the self you abandoned along the way. Where in your life are you still trading authenticity for attachment? That's where your work begins. Carl Jung's warning cuts deep. What you do not make conscious, you will live as fate. You keep replaying the same broken love story. Different actors, same plot. Love that feels like hunger. Starving for validation. Sacrifice disguised as devotion. Trading pieces of yourself to be wanted. fear masquerading as passion, anxiety you've mistaken for butterflies. But the most dangerous illusion? Idealization. When you place someone on a pedestal, you stop seeing them. You see your own longing projected. The higher you lift them, the smaller you shrink. What began as love mutates into how emotional servitude. Love demands equals, not a worshiper and a god. The moment you diminish yourself, your love becomes covert control. Your needs transform into silent demands. The connection curdles into transactional suffering. Duty the way back to real love. 1. Face your interior wilderness. That gnawing loneliness you avoid? Go there. Until you befriend your own solitude, you'll use people as escape routes. From yourself. Mistake. Attachment lied for affection. Demand others. Complete you. A job no human can do. 2. Perform emotional surgery. Jung's revelation. We chase externally what we haven't integrated internally. Your desperate search for the one. It's your disowned animus crying out. That fantasy of being completed. It's your unloved fragments begging for attention. 3. Cross the desert of detachment. This is where fake love dies and real love begins. You'll stop romanticizing suffering. If it hurts, it must be real. See relationships clearly, without fantasy filters. Grieve the love you thought you had. Drear the sacred shift, from hunger to wholeness. When you finally love from abundance, you choose partners, you don't need them. You share yourself, you don't lose yourself. You walk with someone, not behind them. This is the paradox. The love that once destroyed you becomes the love that frees you. Your invitation to radical love. Ask yourself tonight, am I loving this person or my idea of them? Is this connection nourishing me or depleting me? Would I tolerate this behavior from someone I truly respected? The answers will light your path home, to the only love that never betrays you. The love that begins and ends with your own awakening. Here's what happens when you finally embody self-completion. Your energy becomes a gravitational force, not for parasites, but for partners. You start attracting those who resonate with your wholeness, not exploit your emptiness. Choose you consciously, not cling out of desperation. Amplify your light, not dim you to feel brighter. The brutal beauty? The exodus begins. Those who fed on your need will starve near your fullness. They'll call you cold when you're actually nuclear, burning too brightly for their comfort. Derisu, the sacred unlearning. 1. The death of transactional love. That childhood wound, earn me, prove yourself, shrink to be loved, was never love. It was emotional capitalism. You were taught love flows toward worthiness. Real love flows from worthiness. 2. In Jung's child in the control room. Your inner child isn't healing work. It's the CEO of your love life. Until you acknowledge its terror of abandonment. Update its operating system. Love isn't earned. Retrain its reflexes from clinging to choosing. You'll keep reenacting ancient heartbreaks with modern faces. The relapse paradox. Every backslide into old patterns isn't failure. It's data. That text you shouldn't send. A flare revealing where the wound still bleeds. That excuse you make for them? A fossil of childhood bargaining. When you stop seeking completion, you start recognizing soulmates, not saviors, fearing silence. You discover its eroticism. Real love breathes in quiet, monitoring their gaze. You awaken your own, the only one that ever mattered. This is how you break the karmic loop. 1. Name the original lie. Love hurts, I'm too much. 2. Starve its modern expressions. Drama. Familiarity, not love. 3. Rewire through action. Choose solitude over toxic company. Just once. Watch the spell break. Real love doesn't, Require loss of self, thrive on anxiety, demand proof. It whispers, I'll never ask you to choose between me and your soul. Your mission? Become someone who loves like the sun, giving because it's your nature, not obligation, flows like water, present but never trapped, strikes like lightning, illuminating truth, even when it burns. That small voice screaming, this isn't love, it's self-betrayal. It's not your enemy, it's your awakening. The child who learned to earn love doesn't need soothing, it needs co-warrior to rewrite its story. Start today. 1. Locate the original wound, whose love came with conditions. 2. Intercept the pattern. Where do you still perform for love? 3. Initiate the upgrade. Choose one act of radical self-honor. This isn't spirituality. It's emotional revolution. The only question left, will you die a martyr to old wounds or live as architect of your liberation? You don't fall in love with them. You fall in love with the ghost of what could be. That shimmering mirage of, if they just, when they finally, maybe one day. Here's the brutal truth you're avoiding. You're not in a relationship with a person. You're in a relationship with your own hope. Every compromise chips away at your future self. Every excuse becomes another brick in your prison. That little more time you give, it's your life bleeding out. The cruelest lie attachment tells. Suffering now will be worth it later. But later never comes. Your body has been hijacked by cortisol and adrenaline. You've been conditioned to mistake chaos for passion, confuse suffering for depth, interpret calm as boring. This is why healthy love feels wrong. Your trauma wiring screams, where's the punishment? Where's the payoff? This can't be real. Do the way out. 3 acts of rebellion. 1. Perform a reality audit. Ask brutally, what evidence exists that they'll change? Not your hopes. Proof. Would I tolerate this from a friend? What would I tell my child if they were in this relationship? To rewire your nervous system. Start small. Sit with calm until it feels safe, not boring. Notice when you're creating. Drama to feel alive. Practice receiving love without self-sabotage. 3. The nuclear option, fall in love with reality. Trade your fantasy for what is, not what could be, their actions, not their potential, your non-negotiables, not their excuses. When you stop chasing completion, you start recognizing completion. Performing for love, you become magnetic to real love. Romanticizing pain, you develop a taste for peace. This is the paradox. The love you desperately sought finds you, only when you no longer need it to survive. Starting today. 1. Break up with potential. Marry reality instead. 2. Detox from drama. Your nervous system will fight. Starve it. 3. Become your own benchmark. If it doesn't feel like freedom, it's not love. The most radical act, walking away from what could be to honor what is. Jung's self isn't some spiritual concept. It's your unshakable core. The part of you that remains intact when relationships end, validations fade, the world shakes. This is where real transformation begins. The path to wholeness isn't enlightenment. It's kekuiu daily rebellion. Choosing solitude over toxic familiarity, even when your bones ache for home. Sitting with the void instead of filling it with warm bodies. Letting the withdrawal symptoms of love addiction pass without acting. You'll let you relapse. You'll romanticize past pain. This isn't failure. It's called detox. True detachment isn't about the other person. It's about your relationship with yourself. 1. You stop confusing love with ownership. Real love never demands someone diminish themselves. 2. You stop mistaking potential for reality. Stop dating projects, date people. 3. You stop using others as existential band-aids. Your purpose isn't to be needed, it's to live. The moment you truly grasp this, you become unchainable. Your great love story was never about finding someone. It was about becoming someone. The milestones that matter. When I miss you hurts less than I lost myself with you. When solitude shifts from punishment to baksh, sacred space. When you stop keeping score in relationships, what you gave versus what you got. This isn't spirituality. It's Hauk's emotional sovereignty. You'll reach a point where goodbyes don't destroy you, they reveal you. Love isn't something you fall into, it's something you stand in. Your heart becomes both soft and impenetrable, able to love deeply without losing form. This is what Jung meant by individuation. Not perfection, but wholeness. Today, practice this radical question. Am I loving from my center or from my wound? The answer will show you where you're still trading dignity for crumbs, where you mistake intensity for intimacy, where your love is actually covert control. This is your moment of reckoning, not with past lovers, with the parts of yourself still begging to be claimed. Remember this, Soy. Love that chains you isn't love, it's fear in disguise. Love that burns hot and cold isn't passion, it's instability. Love that demands you shrink, beg, or betray yourself, that's not love. That's attachment. True love whispers. It doesn't need to scream to be felt. Expands you. It doesn't force you to choose between them and yourself. Let's go, because love trusts while fear clutches. What you've been calling love, that's addiction. That's trauma. That's the echo of an old wound. Not a heartbeat. You have two options now. Keep living in dependency, chasing highs, drowning in lows, repeating the same story with different faces. Cross the bridge to yourself, where love isn't something you beg for, but something you radiate. If this cuts deep, if even one sentence here feels like a mirror you can't unsee, then you're ready. Drop this in the comments right now as a promise to yourself. I choose my peace over fear. Write it. Not for me, for you. So the next time you're tempted to fall back into old patterns, you remember, you swore you wouldn't betray yourself again. Psychotic Secrets isn't here to entertain you. It's here to break you so you can rebuild stronger. If you want more uncomfortable truths, more brutal psychology, more revelations that force you to see your life differently, then stay. But warning. After this, you won't love the same way again. You won't settle for less because now you know. And once you see the truth, there's no going back. Because the real journey, it doesn't happen out there. It happens inside you. See you in the next video. Or rather, where it really matters. In the mirror, in your choices, in the life you dare to create.